You're going to want to open your eyes. Not only to witness the stunning scenes of this island landscape, and to keep count of how many crayfish we catch.
They're like spiders.
But, as Dutch sailor Huitman suggested, open your eyes to this very dangerous chain of islands that you do not want to find with the bottom of your boat. This is the Abrolhos Islands. Abrolhos is the abbreviation of a Portuguese term meaning open your eyes. Unfortunately, Huitman's message went unheeded by the crew of the Batavia, the Dutch flagship of the East India Trading Company that ran aground here in 1629. This disastrous accident turned into a spine-chilling chain of events that included mutiny, murder, and sex slavery. But we'll get more into that in just a second. We cannot wait to share this story with you guys. Luckily for us, learning from the tales of explorers well before our time, and aided by modern day navigation, we made it to the Abrolhos Islands unscathed.
This place is quite stunning.
We're currently completing a circumnavigation of Australia while we take on university. And excitingly, we're now well and truly over halfway around the continent. 3,200 nautical miles to go. It's been a little tough here on the west coast, battling the Indian Ocean south.
This west coast is just...
It's a piece of work, eh?
It's a piece of work.
But making it to the Abrolhos is reminding us of why we do boat life.
We went for like an exploratory dive to see if we could like hone our eye in on where there might be some crayfish, but we found them. We found heaps of them. Woohoo! WA!
This morning we're off to find some treasures on another island. It's pretty fascinating stuff and we're super excited to see it. I've got my dive pants on and we might go for a dive as well, which will be cool. So, upon arriving here, we have been not only studying hard for exams, but also reading up on the gruesome events that took place here. This book is so well written and just manages to capture how these turn of events went down on these islands. It's a hard one to fathom upon being here because it's a spectacular place to be. But for the 300 people who were aboard the Batavia and became shipwrecked and castaways, this archipelago was a place of nightmares. Yeah, it's just honestly insane.
If there was water, it'd be a good place to be shipwrecked.
Today, we're going to lay eyes on the first European structure to ever be constructed in Australia. Wow.
This was where they, fended it off from.
But before we show you that, it's important to have some backstory as to how it came to be.
Alright, so the story goes back to the 1600s.
Okay, before we go any further, it's real time. Soph here, editing. I just wanted to quickly say I'm not too sure whether the ship is pronounced Batavia or Batavia. There's lots of mixed opinions on the internet, so I'm going to say Batavia because that's how I've been saying it this whole time, including in the footage that I'm currently editing. So just bear with me on that one. Okay, and finally, let's get into the story. In 1628, Batavia left Holland on her maiden voyage to the exotic East Indies as the flagship of the Dutch East India Trading Company, otherwise known as the VOC. Ruling with an iron fist, the VOC flourished into riches and soon became the driving force for transporting spice and other goods between Asia and Europe.
If you equated their wealth back then, I think it's meant to be like it would have more wealth than Amazon, Apple and Facebook and everything like that currently combined. Was their value sort of respectively in their time.
The ship set off from Holland with 341 people and the richest cargo to ever set sail on board. Inbound for Batavia, a claimed portion of land in the East Indies which we now know as Jakarta. Following the Brouwer route, the Batavia would reach the latitudes of 35 to 40 degrees south before turning east to make use of the belt of prevailing westerly winds, which we refer to today as the Roaring Forties. They would then sail about 3,000 nautical miles before steering a north to northeast course to safely reach the East Indies. This route was mandated by the VOC in 1617 as the journey from Holland to East Indies could now be achieved in under 6 months compared to other routes that would stretch the journey out to over a year. However, this new route was risky because with no precise way to measure their longitude and only relying on unreliable measurements of time, distance and speed, a skipper would be bound to miscalculate how far east they had travelled, increasing the risk of encountering Australia's treacherous reef-scattered coastline.
And I think when the Dutch first saw this stretch of Australian coast, they just went, nah, whatever, like we're going to Indonesia where it's like coconuts and palm trees and beaches and stuff. Here it's just like cliffs and reef. It was treacherous. It was probably, I think they described it as being like evil looking.
And this is precisely where Batavia happened to end up. This is where the story gets really interesting and where it starts to all unfold, which is where we're sitting right now.
Or on the island next to us.
Although well aware of the need to be cautious in these waters, the skipper's negligence on watch meant the ship failed to avoid collision with Morning Reef, the fringing reef off what became known as Traitor's Island. It's said that the skipper saw breaking waves. However, upon a second opinion, it was concluded that it was merely the reflection of the moonlight on the water. So, no action was taken until the bottom of the hull concluded that it was in fact a reef.
Interestingly enough, it's all written in a journal, and that's the only reason this story exists, is it was written in the commander's journal. But yeah, it's described what they thought they saw, the reflection of the moon on the waves, and they were unfortunately very wrong. What they were seeing was the Abrolhos Islands reef. Some of them they, thrown into the water, everything like that. People have to jump and swim when the ship's going down. But they ended up on a few different islands.
250 people managed to swim from the wreck to these small islands nearby. Now finding themselves stranded and without water, someone needed to take action.
The captain and the commander of the VOC, they had a little cutter that they could get round, I guess like the equivalent of a ship's tender back then. They had a few of them. And they couldn't find any water on the island, so they actually made the decision to go to the mainland, which is rumoured to exist out that way, and look for water there. And they didn't find any water. So they made a hectic decision to sail from here non-stop to Indonesia in a little open vessel, essentially a canoe with a sail, which in itself is just like mind-blowing.
In the absence of the ship's command, things began to take an ugly turn. Before the ship came to grief, there'd already been a mutiny on board, and now, stranded on the islands, things only continued to spiral out of control. An opportunistic and evil man assumed the role of leader and gathered some followers. While most starved and suffered from severe dehydration, the mutineers gorged themselves on salvaged ship's provisions of water, wine, and fine foods. It proved to be a horrible place to be stranded, with little protection from the elements on the small islands, and with no fresh water supply, the castaways relied on drinking the blood of seals to survive, which was also their primary food source. But when the resident seal colony and the ship's provisions diminished, the mutineers turned to population control as a technique to make provisions last longer. While attractive women were kept alive to service the mutineers' desires, others were plucked off one by one. To further increase population decline, groups were sent on false water and food missions to neighbouring islands where they would be left to starve before being massacred. It's so surreal to think that so many people's lives were lost here. Their mission of getting the population to 40 bodies was going well, until one of the groups sent to die on an island made a life-saving discovery. We'll tell you what they discovered in just a second, but one thing I bet they wish they had while they were out here, forced to do a bit of outdoor living, was a beautiful name in the Slater blankets. These blankets would have gone a long way to keep them warm, provide a nice spot to sit their bum while keeping the sand away from their food if they were lucky enough to find some, and even made the harsh Abrolhos Islands a little bit more homey. While unfortunately the survivors of the Batavia wreck weren't carrying their name in the Slater blankets with them at the time, we take these bad boys with us literally everywhere we go. From the V-berth to the saloon to our exposed cockpit and even further to waterfalls and picnic tables. Our name in the Slater blankets brighten the mood wherever we go. We love that these colourful blankets are made from Australian grown regenerative cotton skeleton, and after years of loving owls, we can attest that they're built to last. If only the castaways had internet access, they could have just clicked the link in the description below to check out the beautiful new designs Name This Later has just dropped. Better yet, they could have used our code SLIMANDSOAP for 15% off their order. While we all know that this was impossible in the 1600s, luckily it's 2024 and you're just a few clicks away from having your very own Name This Later blanket. Unlike the spice trade, it won't take 6 months for you to get your order, as all orders come with free shipping and a 30-day return policy. So once again, thanks so much to Name This Later for supporting this wee channel of ours, and don't forget to check out the link in the description below. So let's find out what exactly they discovered.
There was militants on the boat, so whenever the company moved goods or anything like that, they would have a private army on board. They didn't want these men still being loyal to the company in uprisings, so before he started doing anything too wild and murdering too many people overtly at least, he put all of the militant men that could have prevented him doing what he wanted to do in a canoe and sent them over to an island he thought there to be no water on, and said, go off there, find some water and light a fire. When you're done and we'll come pick you up. The thing is, it was meant to be a death sentence without a fight. So they were meant to go over there and starve and die without water, while these guys on the other island still used the remainder of the ship's barrels of fresh water. But what happened is, being a military man, one of them, and he's kind of the hero of the story, stayed true and regimented, and they sort of scoured this island methodically, and they actually found some water.
This is the island neighbouring where we're currently anchored. So we're jumping in the tender and heading over to retrace the steps of the mutineers.
3, 2, 1, go!
We're joined by Miles, Tor and Jackie today, so naturally it always starts off with a race.
I think we've got a clear winner!
Oh my god. With our curiosity about who had the fastest outboard cured, we made the journey over to West Wallaby Island. We navigate over the incredibly shallow water.
It's like knee deep or something.
These shallows make it tricky to reach the island.
So we're just trying to figure out how we can get to Slaughter Point.
Too shallow for the tender to pass over with us in it, we have to wade carefully through the uneven rocky ground towards the shore.
We're literally retracing the steps of the mutineers. But this is literally what prevented them from basically murdering an entire island.
These shallows we're currently struggling through are what the mutineers also struggled through when they finally decided to take on the military men on West Wallaby Island. This uneven ground restricted their ability to attack the island with force.
It looks like a sandy bottom, but once you actually step in, it's like really, really soft mud. And like super uneven bottom. No wonder why they had to retreat twice.
The mutineers wanted rid of the men who were now prospering on this island. Unbeknown to the mutineers, these men were now pretty strong and healthy after not only finding water but also finding a strange animal they'd never seen before, the wallaby. These men, led by Hayes, also got word that the mutineers were up to no good and had in fact intended to leave them on the island to die. So they began to prepare defences. And when the day came that the mutineers did attack the island, Hayes and his men fired slingshots down on the mutineers, who were, as we are, making very slow progress towards the shore.
Made it!
Unable to reach the island, the mutineers retreated.
Wow.
It's so barren. You'd be so off at being rude here.
In addition to the natural defence of the extended shallows, Hayes and his men also built forts to use their slingshots while protected from the mutineers' musket fire.
So we're trying to find the remains of those forts.
What did we find?
Mi casa es tu casa.
This fort, made of coral blocks and constructed in 1629, is the first ever European structure in Australia.
This is the living room. There's the bedroom. Unfortunately, we haven't finished the roof yet. We're currently under renovation. I hope you like the indoor garden we have. Plenty of floral species without flowers. It's a dry, barren land. Dry and barren.
It is very barren, Darren.
Yeah, so this is like the first fort that they built. Basically where they fended them off from, they made their own slingshots. I'm pretty sure out of the leather from those little kangaroos we just showed you. Yeah, pretty good place to fend them off. Like they did really well to have no weapons and manage to fend off a whole bunch of dudes with muskets.
Hoo-yah! That's how they would have attacked. No, with slingshots.
Seeing and being amongst these forts just cements for us that these brutal events that took place here truly did happen.
Really, really quite a cool piece of history here.
It's surreal to think we're standing and walking in the same steps as the survivors of the wreck did 400 years ago.
I think what's craziest about all of this is that this is like a European man-made structure that predates Captain Cook's arrival. So it's kind of wild, really.
These remains are so significant not only as they act as proof to the story, but they also mark the beginning of the end for the last remaining survivors on the Abrolhos Islands. Only 70 people out of the 200 that survived the wreck on that fateful evening. It was here where the mutineers and Hayes's good men had their last battle before sighting a sail on the horizon.
There would have been no respite out here. It's like rock everything, the heat just radiates up from it. There's not exactly any cover really, like you could get behind a shrub to get away from the breeze, but you're not really getting away from the sun anywhere here, that great anyway, not at midday. Yeah, tough buggers.
We could only just brush the surface with this story, so if you want to delve into more detail and find out how this all ended, we seriously recommend you read this book. Yeah, I don't know, it's just a really fascinating story, and it's been really interesting being here. It highlighted to us how fortunate we are to be able to enjoy these islands not in a battle for survival. I'm sure if you told the survivors that one day people would visit this spectacular archipelago out of pleasure, they wouldn't believe it. Although not in a dire state of starvation as the people of the Batavia wreck were, we're running quite low on food rations. Fortunately, the Abrolhos hosts the most crayfish we've ever seen in one spot.
Nice big whale too.
You can tell this cray is a female and she's ready to spawn with the black tar spot you can see on her bottom side. To keep a healthy population of crays, it's important to let her go. With all of these crays, we wonder whether the Batavia castaways clued onto the mass of fresh protein that was lurking just beneath the surface.
We have returned successfully. I stopped like halfway through and just started filming because I got like 3 really nice sized males. We were picking up females. A lot of the females had tar spots on them. So there was a lot of pregnant females there. But we let them go. There's a female. Had berries. And then at the end we were just snorkeling for fun and like looking at the fish. And we found this hole that was like, I reckon there would have been 100 in a cave like that big, just all on each other and big monster ones down the bottom. We were like, oh, what? But like, I purposely didn't even put gloves on because I knew if I didn't put gloves on, I wouldn't be tempted to grab one. We'll save it for tomorrow. So we got 3 nice ones. I'll show you.
So good. Ah! Oh my god. Oh my god. Ah!
2 littlies. Miles got one of these little guys. I think that might be my one with the 2 antlers. Yeah, that is my one with the 2 antlers. So Miles got this guy. And then I got 2 big ones, which I'm really proud of.
Sick. Oh my god. They're like spiders. Oh my god. This is chaotic. I'm like expecting one to like jump through the boat or something. That is a good catch, hey?
Look at that. Nice butterfly craytail. Plenty of meat there for the boys to go around, eh? What do you reckon about that, Miles? Plenty of meat for the boys to go around. And girls, Jackie and Sophie are allowed to have a little bit each. Alright, next up. Sorry bro. Your turn to go. I'm no expert, but the limited knowledge I have is that the nerve line is in the middle of the cray, so I always just try and sever it as quickly as I can, straight through the middle of the whole thing. Another nice fillet, eh? Tail, not fillet.
Shout out to cameraman Miles today. Woo!
I need to wash my board, eh?
Oh!
I was thinking that'd be funny if that happened. Oh.
Alrighty, the guys got a whole heap of crayfish. We're running severely low on food. However, we're joining forces with basically the whole anchorage, not basically the whole anchorage. Every boat in the anchorage is heading to shore and we're gonna go cook up that catch and have dinner all together. Everyone's bringing a little something to contribute. We're bringing a gas bottle and we're heading ashore and meeting everyone else to cook some dinner together. So it should be really nice.
Get into it. Right, so Soph just asked me what the plan was. I've only just become savvy to the plan myself. We've got the 4 crays that we had on knackers this afternoon that we're just going to do garlic and butter. And with the others, something super exciting. Tor's going to show us something I've never done before, which is popcorn crayfish. Probably going to taste as good as it sounds. We'll find out soon enough, and you probably will shortly. Anyway, before we get into that, you're probably wondering who this bunch of scallywags is around us, so Soph might do a brief crew introduction to let you know who we've sort of been tic-tac-toeing our way down this wild, brutal, kind of horrendous has been providing us with crayfish, at least western coast.
So you'd all know Miles by now. He's been largely sailing around Australia with us. We have Tor and Jackie, who we met in the Kimberley, and have already pulled us out of a sticky situation. We have also most recently picked up a Canadian. This is Drew. Drew has embarked on a journey of a lifetime to sail from Canada to the exact opposite side of the earth to where he was born. You can check out his Instagram page, he's got some great content on there. And lastly, we have also adopted an American. This is Ed, one of the keenest fishermen we've ever met and who you might recognise from the cover of this magazine.
Do you want to say what you're doing?
So to get the meat out, you want to boil it for about 20 seconds, but it doesn't cook, but it comes out, it separates from the skin. Otherwise you get what we did earlier.
What did you do earlier?
Zoom in.
Oh.
So this is for the popcorn crayfish. Tours onto the trick of boiling the crays for about 20 seconds, which is just enough time for the meat to separate from the shell. The crays are then cut up into bite-sized pieces before being crumbed and fried.
Popcorn chicken made out of fresh crayfish.
Is it good?
That is yum. Yeah, you'll froth it, sir.
That's delightful.
Well, I didn't actually know that you were going to be bothered to bring the butter.
That is a good way to eat it. Popcorn crayfish.
Thanks, Wayne.
Alright, so we're going to do crayfish every which way between all 7 of us that we know how. Pretty much everything we can do from a little campfire stove, we're giving it a red hot crack. So we're going to do some like herb, garlic, butter, fried rice, crayfish of course. We've just done a whole big, I think it was like 5 or 6 crays worth of popcorn cray, which we've been nibbling on as we've been having a beer. And yeah, now it's time for the final course. We're going to do some really nice garlic butter tails and serve them on top of our fried rice, also with cray. Between all of us boats, we don't have many veggies left, but there's no shortage of protein. So really happy with this. Good company, good food, frothing. Right, so what's on the menu is the crayfish fried rice, a salad, crayfish tails in garlic butter, and we've kind of just been gorging ourselves on popcorn cray for the last
It's like a full crayfish banquet. I'm pretty sure people pay like hundreds of dollars for this.
Yeah.
How lucky are we?
Yeah.
Hey, very lucky.
Anyway, stop talking about it and start eating it.
These moments of enjoying a freshly caught meal with a bunch of salty mates from all over the globe and all different walks of life create some truly special memories, and it's one of the reasons we've fallen so in love with life sailing on the ocean. It's out here on the islands that you forget about the chaos of the world and we can reset for our next big sail.
Hello? Yeah, alright, I'll tell him. You gotta subscribe or you can't watch any longer.
Passarinho da montanha quando chega voou, voou. Passarinho da montanha quando chega voou, voou. Passarinho da montanha quando chega voou, voou.
Oh, yeah, there's a wallaby up here! Hey, wallaby!
Hi! You're so cute!
Vento leve, love logo já. Vento leve, love logo já.
This is a fat little bugger, ain't he?
These levels are good ones.
Logo já.
No kidding.
Que vento leve, love logo já. Que leve, love já. Para papo, papo.
Well guys, that's the end of this week's video. We really hope you enjoyed. If you really did enjoy it and you haven't yet subscribed, please feel free to subscribe and hit that like button. Even drop us a comment, just say hi. We read every comment that's left and we try and get back to you the best as we can. And if you really liked the video, then becoming a patron really helps us to ensure that we can keep creating these videos for you. So we really appreciate your generosity and support. Alrighty guys, we'll see you next time.